I'm Supermoon Tarot, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at what future mistake can you rewrite now? This one is one to contemplate, because often when we go through little mishaps and we're like, oh no, I should have done this instead of that, or I wish I had known what to do to prevent this from happening, it's usually too late by then, and we're like, I guess this is what I'm dealing with now, and we're kind of dealing with being the cleanup crew of our own lives. But something I deeply love about tarot is we can actually pre-learn lessons, but it also is a great exercise to rethink the way we perceive things, because it is really true. And I want to be clear here, while I am very much a promoter and I talk how deeply impactful it can be in your life in positive thinking, having a mindset of abundance, anything, thinking the best case scenario, what do you want to happen rather than focusing on what you didn't like happening, things like that. This is something I've countlessly exercised and learned from the spirit guides myself, so it really is true. Do want to be clear. Feel those feelings. Same thing, not only what I believe, but the spirit guides talk about. You're allowed to be negative. You're allowed to feel frustration. You were allowed to feel any range of emotions and still be successful and happy and have all the things you want in life. It's just about prolonged attention towards what you really want happening. So I want to be clear about that. But sometimes when we're looking for mistakes or worried about what's going to happen, it can be a negative spin, and you can be a little too locked on of thinking things in the future will always be a mishap, when that's not necessarily true at all. So this is a way of rewriting that perspective. We're looking at, yes, we can make mistakes and what could possibly go wrong and things like that, but we're also seeing that there's already a solution. Our headspace is already at the part of ourselves that is over making something happening and avoiding it altogether in general. And so we're not only talking about the future mistake, but if it does pop up in the reading how you got there, that's good to know, so you can avoid that too. And also talking about in general the solution to all of it. So I love this for you because it's just an all-around going deeper kind of headspace. And speaking of going deeper, if you are interested in not only supporting this channel, but getting some fantastic exclusive content where we do go very deep on many levels, and I teach people how to tap into their abilities, and we visit our ancestors, and we time travel together, and we have all these wonderful discussions, and go into the Akashic records to look up deeper meaning of things. If you're interested in any of that, I have it all available on my Patreon. So it's a very kind gesture of you, and you get a bunch of awesome content back. I just posted 2 new videos over there. One of those was a story, as well as a drawing to show an experience I had with the Spirit of Change. Not only the discussion we had, but also them explaining how they approach their own spiritual work. It was really fascinating, involving singing and a building and symbols, and all of that's over there. And the second video I posted was a very fantastic question. It was almost like a layer of questions in one about this individual, and it was a bit of a confirmation story as well, but them talking about their frustrations they've had dealing with middle world beings, or trying to tap in with their spirit guides and then getting tricked, and what does that mean, or feeling a frustration when they want to see something and then they're not seeing it. And I went really deep into not only answering it, but their questions ended up igniting all 800 other topics and points. And if you just like to sit down for a little while and go on a wonderful, dreamy, deeper, subconscious conversation, which I don't know about you, I love those, that's definitely there too, and you'll enjoy that in that video. In addition to that, I've got 3 courses if you would like to check them out and enhance your own abilities and skills. I got a tarot training course, very self-explanatory, an intuition training course, teaching you how to go to the spirit realm, meet your spirit guides, but here's the big thing, so much more, teaching you how to utilize it in your everyday life, and 3, a meditation course, the Thinking Person's Practice. All of these courses are not what you would traditionally expect. They're very straightforward. I give away all of my secrets and tips and tricks, and fun fact, I use all of the methods and all of those courses every day, all the time. It has dramatically changed my life, and I want you to have what you deserve, which is constant access to the best parts of yourself, knowledge, being able to essentially read the pamphlet of your life and work with it. So anyways, those are available as well in the description below. But going back to our reading, we have 4 groups in front of us. Group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. I want you to take a second and think of a future version of yourself, and obviously you don't need to know the mistake, but you're just thinking, hey, future me that's made the mistake, let me tap into you right now. What group do you think I should pick? And keep in mind, even you doing this tiny exercise that you may overlook, I just want to point out, it is a psychic exercise. You are reaching into a future version of yourself. You are exercising psychic abilities. I want you to fathom that and understand that. Just the act of interacting with a reading is you doing that. So, all that in mind, let me give you a few moments to pick the group that resonates with you most. Now that you have, let's get started with group number 1. And also, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It would help out like you would not believe. Let's get started with group number 1. Group number 1. Let's find out, what future mistake can you rewrite now by looking at the cards. Our first card is the Devil card upright, which I feel is the perfect theme card. Oftentimes in many card readings it tends to be. Not always, that's not the main reading of it, but usually when this card pops up, it's like powerful enough of a concept that it usually does take place in that way. But we'll see with the rest of the cards, which is the Hermit card upright, the Hangman upright. Okay, we are definitely having a theme pop up. The High Priestess in reverse. Yep, it is continuing. And 5 of Cups in reverse. Okay, this is exactly what I thought it would essentially build up to be. It's pretty straightforward, but give me one moment to double check. I double check everything. I don't jump to conclusions. And just to consult my spirit guide to see if there is any other details that can add to this reading or for your knowing. So just give me one moment to look at that. Okay, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it would be, but something that I really love that my spirit guide was adding to is when we have parts of ourselves that we don't especially love, or we're trying to view it in a different way, or even a different way we approach something that we're, again, harsh upon ourselves about, it's like we'll approach our spirit guides and be like, this is how I see it. And they just have this super beautiful, magical way of almost rewriting the way you can perceive it. They totally take off this unknowing inner guilt and judgment we put on ourselves. And you don't realize how much you may do that and how much it does affect and add negatively to the process of you trying to overcome an idea. And by them doing that, you're able to suddenly overcome these issues a lot easier. And just some food for thought to think about. This is a perspective all of us can easily have at any time. But I will say that spirit guides have definitely mastered it. So something to think about. So you'll understand that as I go deeper into this. But first, let's start with what I totally knew was our theme card and basically our future mistake that we're going to rewrite. And the rest of it's talking about how to rewrite it. So in the Devil card, it talks specifically about this idea of a bad habit. And I was told that this is a habit you have like a little bit of now, but it could progressively get worse and worse. And obviously we don't want that for you. The reason why we don't want that for you is the devil card's really difficult. It's definitely what I like to think of as a catch-22 or a chicken, what came first, chicken and the egg, where you're in essentially a cycle where you say to yourself, oh, tomorrow it's going to be different, or, let me just do this one last time. And then you keep accidentally going back to the thing to get sort of an instant comfort that then pulls you deeper into a headspace that's not necessarily healthy, or habits that are not healthy. And then essentially it puts you in a loop where you're sort of constantly dealing with is the word I can think of, this issue, rather than getting to explore other parts of your life, who you are, feel more in control of yourself, enjoy essentially your free will. It doesn't feel like you have free will when you're in these type of habits. These habits can be anything from ingesting something that's negative for yourself, or the amount in which you're digesting it for negative reasons because you feel that you quote unquote deserve it or whatever. But sometimes these negative habits can be like a mindset where you keep saying you have like a perfectionist mindset, or you keep saying to yourself, tomorrow's the day, like I do all these things, and you have a huge list of how you're going to self-improve, but ultimately you're just putting too much stress on yourself and it's not building up in a good way. And then every day sort of kind of bleeds into the next and feels the same, of you just constantly trying to self-recover from something that you don't need to put yourself through. So you can see how toxic it is as an idea, and it doesn't feel good. But there's something really important to pay attention to when it comes to this idea and how consuming it can be. Because again, this is something that affects all the other aspects of your life, because it becomes the main motif that you kind of have to like deal with or calls your attention constantly. So this card talks about this idea of somebody having a hole inside of themselves, is the best way I can put it. And obviously because you want to feel, instead of H-O-L, you want to feel W-H-O-L, you want to feel complete. You want to obviously fill it up. And unknowingly, you're like, okay, I will fill it up through, again, these not great habits. And these ungreat habits will give you instant sort of pleasure or a sense of relief initially. And so initially you'll be like, oh, okay, I feel de-stressed, or I feel relaxed, or that's just what I needed. But in the long term, you end up finding yourself like you can't say no to going back to something that ultimately just keeps making you feel worse, and you feel dependent on, again, it could be a physical thing you're interacting with, a mindset, you get the gist, or routine you keep going back to over and over again, a perspective, you get the gist. But when we talk about that idea of the whole, it comes back to the Hermit card. And the Hermit is, as you can see how he's facing his light, he is an introspective guy, and he's very straightforward, self-analytical, and isn't afraid to get deep and say to himself, who am I? What does that mean? How do I interact with the world? And he's shining a light on that inner hole and saying, the answer you're looking for, and this is how my spirit guides put it, the answer you're looking for is deeper within. And we have to kind of go into that part of yourself that you're almost trying to fill up, which is understandable, but that's not the way it's actually going to become, again, full, complete, whole. So, coming back to this idea, or going back to how we're going to do that, we're going to look at these three things, these that are popping up, that are the way of essentially filling up that part of yourself so you don't keep going back to those instant reliefs, the bad habit that's giving you a temporary feel good, but ultimately in the long term is just a cycle of discomfort. So first we have the Hangman. And my spirit guide said there's two main things popping up, so it could be either one depending on how it relates to you. On one perspective, there's the part of you that is hoping to, how do I say this? They described that there is sorry about that interruption. Anyways, so there was a part of you at some point in your life where things were going swimmingly, and you really loved that aspect of yourself. You felt in the flow. You felt like things were coming your way. Things were easy. This could be financial success. This could feel like just generally things felt good. Maybe you were really creative at that time, or you felt like everyone really liked you. You had a lot of social aspects. I mean, it could be anything, whatever is your ideal version of yourself and that aspect of yourself. And there's a part of yourself that is being put on hold. Like you're holding on to that idea of yourself and wanting to replicate it. But the problem is, when it comes to when we are in the flow, we are constantly evolving as people. So that perfect version of ourselves that gets everything we want and feels totally great about ourselves and feels like they totally know what they're doing and all those other things that I was just saying is a different person. You're a different version of that day to day, year to year. And so while you might be always in the flow, feeling like your best self continuously over decade, and that's wonderful. We want that for you. You are still simultaneously approaching it from a different headspace, different needs, different, like, you're in the flow, but a different way of approaching the flow. You get the gist. So you're holding on to this part of yourself that can't be replicated because you're now a different you. And in that aspect of you holding on to that flow and that concept, you're also simultaneously skewing who that individual is. And so this perfect version of yourself is starting to become almost twisted, if you will. Again, you're not rewriting the past or anything like that, but what you're holding on to is getting kind of messed up in the process, if you will. And so the main thing we want to do is understand that you can totally be in the flow. You can be this perfect version of yourself. Everybody wants to be the best version of themselves. I mean, that's the whole reason why I do this tarot channel. I'm always trying to help individuals see that, connect to that. But you do need to make peace with letting this version of yourself go. You can't keep telling stories and saying, well, back when I was at this time period, everything was like this. Well, back when I was in this time period, I felt like this, or I approached things like this. Fun fact, when people are master manifestors, sorry about that interruption again. So when people are master manifestors, they, understand that, again, back to the different people, different time type of scenario, they're going to manifest in different ways. So just understand that you don't need to compare yourself to how things worked back then, what works now, and understanding that. The second way that the sort of like being put on pause is the best way I can put it, is this idea where, what was it? I'm sorry, I've had to pause because of interruptions. Give me a second to remember. Oh, I remember. My spirit guide was saying, this is where I'm saying is so beautiful. They said that there are parts of yourself that you kind of want to push away, that they described as are unattractive parts. Not that they are unattractive, but that you view them as unattractive, that societally they're not seen as great traits, is the best way I can put it. A good example is when they're in the process of healing, they might get really angry and deal with being like an angry person. And societally, most people don't want to experience that, both either firsthand as the individual being upset in that kind of way or other people around them. But my spirit guide said every emotion is valuable and is worth feeling and beautiful. And first of all, just basically, you don't need to judge yourself or hide it away just because there's a part of yourself that's like, I don't want to view it. I don't want to look at that part of myself. Maybe there's a part of yourself that is decently judgmental and you don't want to kind of face that you may be like that. Because there's a part of yourself that knows that's not going to make you happy. That's not, if you were to define the best version of yourself, that's not it. So there's a part of you kind of like pushing it down, not wanting to face it, but in turn, it's kind of putting you, again, in a sort of standstill pause motion. So in the first part where we talked about someone letting go of that view of themselves, the perfection, the who they once were, and instead finding in the moment now what works, and approaching that same mindset of who they want to be and being it now. So from letting go and then seeing who they are now. And this aspect, this is when you want to kind of face it. Be upfront with yourself about it. Who are you? Let yourself experience it within reason. Obviously, we don't want to project onto people. That's not kind to do to others ever. And it's not healthy in general. But it is healthy to say, I don't feel great, or this is who I am. And start to say to yourself, okay, well, this is a part of myself. What does that feel like? What does it need? And give it comfort. A really great way I find approaching this parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily love is one, of course, taking off the judgment, but a great way to take off the judgment and approach facing it is viewing it as if it is a child. Seeing it in pain, seeing it as like a separate being from yourself. And most of us, when we see individuals, especially young kids, and we see them in some form of tantrum or whatever, most of us feel a sense of compassion, that they feel frustrated or hurt or confused, and they're experiencing these really intense, powerful emotions for the first time. And so it's easier for us to tap into the loving, compassionate side of ourselves. Try going into a meditation and seeing like a younger version of yourself in those feelings, in those expressions, and talk to them. And what would you do in a sense of giving them advice or comfort? Maybe it could be just as simple as hugging them and letting them know that they are loved and that nothing's over or bad just because they are experiencing that. So that's one thing you're going to focus on when it comes to, again, fulfilling this void. But speaking of voids, interestingly enough, we have the High Priestess in reverse. So my spirit said that there is a part of you that you are putting on hold, a very knowing part of yourself. Like, there's a part of yourself that actually does know what's going on, does know the next answer, but not just within yourself. It's more of like an aspect of you're the person that is able to understand in other situations when people are maybe not good people and you can sense it, but everyone else is like, what are you talking about? They're a great person. And you're like the person that's like, something's off, like I can feel it. Or there's a frustrating aspect where you can sense what's going to happen next. This is especially painful when people sense things, like let's say something's not going to work out and there's a part of you that already knows it. This can often send people into a spiral because they just think, see, it will never work out. Things don't work out for me. Not at all. Maybe that wasn't meant for you and you just were able to accurately sense it. So whatever that may be, there's a part of you that doesn't want to face it. Now, my spirit guide said this could be anything from like an insecurity, like sometimes we're afraid to have other people see that we're so powerful. We're afraid we'll be confused for coming across as narcissistic, selfish, a know-it-all, things like that. We're afraid, what if, and this is a crazy one to believe, but sometimes, deep subconsciously, we might say, we want the best version of ourselves. We want the best life. But sometimes there's a part of us that's actually terrified of that, of getting everything they want. And with that, again, there is the pushing it down. I don't want to use my inner compass that's going to guide me to that, because what if I get it? Now, this is just point blank simple. You're going to need to dig deep and essentially start, when you hear that little kind of voice in your head or that inkling of what's going to happen, you need to acknowledge it and share it with people, and at the minimum, share it with yourself. You need to acknowledge, yeah, I sense this isn't going to go this way, or I sense this about this individual, or about a direction I should go in, or whatever, and you need to allow it come to the surface, happen, and just exist. And if you feel those emotions getting stirred, like you're getting nervous, you have to say to yourself, I can handle getting everything I want. Or maybe that part of you is like, well, what if other people... Stop. People usually aren't really thinking about us. And two, if anyone didn't want to see you at your best, knowing it all, as in being really knowledgeable, then they are not a supportive person in your life, and they're not actually a healthy connection for you. So that's their problem, not yours. You are allowed to be all-knowing. You are allowed to be in your power. That's a big thing my spirit guide was saying, is that you need to step into your power in this kind of way by acknowledging it, utilizing it, and letting it be a regular thing that you don't ignore or discount or go, well, I don't know. You do know. Stop saying you don't. Let yourself know, because you have an amazing gift and you're allowed to express it. And then the third thing is the Five of Cups in reverse. My spirit guide said that it is really pivotal and important. They said, first of all, with it being in reverse, it's a confirmation that this will for sure happen. Obviously, the other things can as well, but this is sort of like it's sort of the fastest thing that will happen and you'll see the results from. But also, it's actually, interestingly enough, the most important part of these other things that will have a really positive effect. They said you really need to let go of the nitpicking of what you don't like. So you go into an event, you go to a concert. It was a nice concert, you had a good time, but maybe they played some old songs that weren't your vibe. Or some guy bumped into you and kind of pushed you down for a second and you didn't like that. And you're just like, yeah, it was great, but you need to let those things go and deeply acknowledge when they're coming to the surface, that you will put more into priority the things you dislike. What do you want to happen? You want to always have this headspace of, what would you like to happen instead? That's actually a great way to approach things that the spirit guides have been showing me over time, that I'm like, wow, what a great way of viewing it. Because they too are also believers of not repressing emotions, and it's healthy to feel things and feel frustrated, as we just were talking about over here. But there is a certain point, especially in your day-to-day life, where you need to say, have a moment and go, I didn't like that. And then go, okay, well, I'm either going to let this go and just move on, or I can then redirect my attention and manifestation towards, okay, well, I didn't like being bumped. I like the idea that the rest of the time at the concert, I felt comfortable and got to hang out and found even a good spot to go witness the band I was seeing. You see what I'm saying here? You speak into existence what you do want from the frustration of what you didn't like. So with all of that being said, this is important, you're going to focus on these things. This is going to enable you to view that part of yourself wanting to be filled. And by facing these things and changing some stuff and being proactive, you in turn get that fulfillment that then prevents you from feeling like you need to rely on an outside sort of, well, I don't want to say an outside source because sometimes it's a mindset, but an unhealthy instant like whatever's going to instantly feel like it makes you feel better in the moment, but ultimately in the long term pulls you into a not great cycle. So yay for avoiding that future mistake. I'm very happy for you. These are usually pretty hard to get out of. You can, but I'm really happy that we're basically stopping it before the momentum gets building. And these are such manageable, obtainable ways to approach it. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to know. And also please give this video a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2. Let's look at what future mistake can you rewrite now by looking at the cards. Our first tarot card is, oh wow, the 9 of Swords upright and the 5 of Pentacles in reverse. We definitely want to rewrite that. We have the Moon card upright. The 7 of Wands in reverse, which my spirit guide is already telling me is the theme card. The 7 of Swords in reverse and the King of Swords upright. Kind of wondering if these are mirror cards. Let me go look at the details of everything and go consult my spirit guides, and I will be with you in one moment. Okay, that is exactly what I thought. Okay, so this is our theme card, and these are mirror cards. And something I find fascinating, it's so funny, just a little fun fact, when I was going through my own diving deeper sort of spiritual journey, when I say that, I'm referring to I really put in a lot of effort digging deep into sort of like the cosmos secrets, if you will, and I'm always into helping people connect to that, find it for themselves, so on and so forth. I mean, you know me at this point, you know my deal. And I find time and time again, whatever's going on with us gets repeated on the outside. Essentially, we are oftentimes attracting to ourselves our own answers. And sometimes our answers come, depending on the state of mind we're in, come in the form of a reflection to say, when you're in this headspace, this is what gets created around you. So you'll notice that idea as I dive deeper into the similarities going on between these two cards. When I say mirror card, just to clarify that before I go into all of this. This is a terminology that I use in my tarot training course, which means cards that either have a similar concept or meaning, maybe they're like an opposite standpoint of where you begin and where you end type of idea, but they're usually really great for helping you understand where things can go, or understanding, this is very similar to this, back to the explanation we talked about with the reflection in general I just spoke about like 30 seconds ago. So, starting forward with our theme card, we have the Seven of Wands in reverse. My spirit guide said that this individual is sort of approaching this disagreement, this argument, this sort of, they're in a fight with someone type, so to speak, feeling like they have to defend themselves, and they are sort of bare-chested, if you will, as in they are putting it all out on the line, and this becomes a negative thing, and this then, unfortunately, in turn, results in you losing. That's the main mistake we're trying to rewrite. And this is comparable to when someone gets really upset and in their pursuit to defend themselves and be like, this isn't right, they might be overly sharing of their perspective or what they're going through in order to find some common ground, or to be like, hey, because I'm going through X, Y, and Z, you don't have a right to treat me like this. I'm not in the place in my life where I should have to deal with this, that type of thing, whatever. Or being overly expressive of what you think, or being like overly like showing how emotional you are and it making it worse. Now, I want to be clear, we're not describing this idea as a negative idea in general with other situations and arguments. We're just talking about this particular situation. Now, we can better understand, well, what is this sort of position you're being put in when it comes to defensiveness when we look over here. Before I even looked over here, I did confirm with my spirit guide this is a social type of thing where people sort of are ganging up on you with their perspectives or negative input or something like that, and you're feeling like frustrated and being like, well, that's not fair, or like, what about this, or whatever. And again, the argument itself and interacting with it, from what I'm seeing as the card as a whole, isn't going to really benefit you, but then the way you approach it ends up ultimately making you, when I say lose, you feel like worse than how it began, and maybe you feel like you didn't change anyone's mind, and you just feel like frustrated by the end result of it all. So when we say lose, we're more viewing it in that kind of way. Let me just double check with my spirit guide if there's anything else you need to know. None at all. Okay, good. So we're in the same, we're in a good route with all of this. So in the Seven of Swords in reverse, my spirit guide said that there is some lies and gossip that are going to be basically spread around you to other people. And this is one of the main facilitators of you being like, what? This is not, you shouldn't view me as this, I'm this type of scenario. Your character kind of being put into question. Again, lies and gossip, but no one likes that. And it mostly gets facilitated by the King of Swords. This is a person who is in, my spirit guide specifically said, more powerful social standing than you. So this doesn't necessarily mean it's like a boss. It could be a boss, right? I'm just double checking with my spirit guide. Yes, but it doesn't have to be. As in, like, maybe there's just someone who a lot of people tend to gravitate towards them. They get invited out. They might be, I kind of get a very strong vibe that they're popular in like an unconventional sense. Like maybe in another setting, they aren't the most liked person in the room, but in this weird hodgepodge of people that are, regularly forced to hang out with each other, kind of like a coworker situation, for whatever weird reason, they are charismatic enough and in enough of the right position, if you will, to attract people towards them and basically have some form of influence. Now, I did get some specifics. My spirit guide said that they are either an Aries, a Pisces, or Capricorn, specifically in their moon sign or their rising sign. I said, oh, you mean like their sun sign? And they said, no, their moon sign or their rising sign is either an Aries, Capricorn, or Pisces. So that's a way you can get more specific of who they are. But they are the main one influencing, in a position to influence, and unfortunately put you in this position where by the time you find out about it, it would be understandable that we have this defensive stance. This is something just to dive deeper into when we get an extra flavor of the situation you're in, so we can really fully understand the future mistake that we're avoiding. You could have gotten for a combative card the Five of Wands. But the difference is a Five of Wands is two people who are frustrated with each other's opinions, but there's like an equality in the fight of, this is what I think, this is what I think. Seven of Wands is someone being like, hey, you have to do what we want, and then being like, no, and again, putting in a defensive stance, like being forced or put into a position where they have to, again, not to be redundant, defend themselves. So understandably, there is this frustration, and again, back to what we talked about, putting it all out on the line, an emotional reaction, because no one wants this type of experience to happen. So what do we have popping up in that we can basically rewrite this future mistake so you don't go through it, essentially? We have the moon card first, is the main theme, and then this is breaking down what that moon card is. So the moon card is specifically talking about this idea of there is some form of blockage in your subconscious. It's the flavor I'm getting from it, and the best way I can explain it is on some level, you like already can feel and know there's been something in the way that's prevented you from fully like navigating the best versions of yourself or making parts of your life easier, like to manifest easier situations. And you like acknowledge, but then there's a part of you that constantly keeps ignoring it and being like, well, that's great. I acknowledge that for a second. I'm going to go back to, this seems more important. I need to get this thing done. This is really what I want to go approach and do, and blah, blah, blah. You get what I'm saying. So you kind of are aware it's there, but you keep kind of putting it on the back burner of importance to deal with. Now, when we say these two are mirror cards, this talks about this idea of something going on behind the scenes, as in what is happening behind the scenes is then causing an influence to the setting around you. This card represents lies and gossip, something happening behind the scenes about you that then influences what happens in the moment, the future mistake, which is understandable that you approach it this way, but we're gonna change that. So this blockage, this idea, which is really interesting, is the type of one you want to be aware of and acknowledge. I mean, we want to acknowledge all blockages and stuff like that, but this is something that almost helps you develop the skill in being more self-aware and putting it to the forefront of your knowledge. It's like the blockage is being put to the forefront of your knowledge, so is you getting better at acknowledging to self-improve or self-analyze and being more accountable that you want a better life and approaching it in the most healthiest, best way is the best way I can explain it. So what I mean by that statement is sometimes we have these blockages in our life where you're doing your thing, you're self-healing, you're going deeper, or you're living life and one day something triggers you and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like I did not realize I kind of need to go like look inward because I wasn't aware of how much that bothered me. And then there's other blockages where you feel like it's always in the background. You're like aware it's either you know what it is or you're aware something's there. You're like, I know it's there. I don't know how to identify it yet. When we have a blockage in the form of the moon card represented, because this is actually what it represents. This is something I talk about in my tarot course, but this is something that when I was talking to the spirit of moon, they said this is what they represent when I was in the Akashic records. And they talked about how you're meant to see it and acknowledge it. It's meant to be in your face because then it forces you to say, hey, I see some things there. I could potentially fix it, change it, rewrite it, and understand it. And it's a little more in your face. And so it forces you to develop the skills and ability to look behind that blockage, to resolve that blockage. So we're not only acknowledging that something's there and it's resulting in other areas of your life and being like, it's like, think of this as the blockage is less causing havoc and more the havoc being put in front of your face to acknowledge that you should be living your best life and you're not taking care of what needs to be taken care of in order for you to live your best life. And this is also simultaneously teaching you the skills and ability to stop doing that in the future and be more aware of when you acknowledge these things that feel off within you and face them and deal with them and enjoy being more self-analytical in that kind of way. So the way it mostly pops up is a little bit of a cycle. Now you didn't get the Devil card, which is good, which would talk about this idea of like an endless cycle, one influencing the other and sort of building up in a way that becomes a really negative habit in other ways. You did not get that. Instead, it's more of something we can individually look at and manage, but they do influence each other negatively and keep kind of the rotation going, if you will. So in the Five of Pentacles in reverse, it's actually being more read upright and interacting with the Nine of Swords, which is then interacting with this. They're facing each other and running into each other. And the Five of Pentacles in reverse talks about this idea of lacking. You're in a lacking headspace. You don't feel you have enough energy. You don't feel you have enough time. You don't feel like you have enough resources, money, emotions. I mean, it could be anything. It tends to be financially related. And I also find, while it's not traditionally in the cards described as time-wise or energy-wise, I often find that money, time, and energy are all kind of like interchangeable, if you will. And then the Nine of Swords is this just stress over it. Like a lot of lamenting to yourself and over again being like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time. So this means I only have much time for this. And if this happens, then I'm not going to be in a good enough energy mood for tomorrow. Okay, I have to figure this out. This almost like I'm getting a light vibe from some of you that this is like a type A type of personality, which is often how it can manifest in a type A type of personality where this type of a cycle. So you get stressed out, which only makes you feel like you're more in lacking, and then because you feel like you're in more lacking, it stresses you out and it goes over and over again. The main issue here is more the lacking than the stress. The stress needs to be handled too, but it's like you're starting to create this mindset for yourself that unknowingly limits yourself from opportunities and mentalities, because you are in control of your world and your destiny and your fate, and you can have anything you want. But you keep saying to yourself, no, I don't have enough time to do this, or I can only accomplish X, Y, and Z in this time. Or maybe you only say to yourself, yeah, it's only realistic I could get a promotion every blank years, or I don't even know if I could get that. And you're just constantly setting these lower bars for yourself and allowing yourself to stay in it, essentially. And it starts to become this thing where obviously you're uncomfortable and you don't want that and you want to change and you want to have more. And then you say to yourself, why don't I have more? Why don't I feel more relaxed with more time and more energy and more money? And you're unknowingly saying these mantras to yourself over and over again. And one of those negative aspects of it is it creates a lot of emotional discomfort for you. So the main thing you're going to do is you're going to first, in the Nine of Swords, is you're going to just sort of catch yourself whenever you're in distress. don't allow yourself into stress start to go into your mantra of like, yeah, I don't have enough time. Okay, I only have 2 hours of sleep. You have to stop and you have to be like, oh, I'm acknowledging I feel this way. I'm going to immediately do whatever I need to do to relax. Take a moment in your car to breathe for 10 minutes. Go watch your favorite show. Allow yourself to take some tasks off your list and just sort of decompress, if you will. But you're going to make it a priority that nothing else matters other than you're just going to relax. And it's okay if you get stressed, but you're just going to keep saying to yourself, I don't need to make it feel better by micromanaging this lacking I think I have. I need to just deal with the emotion itself. In conjunction to that, you're going to really catch yourself whenever you're practicing that lacking mindset. Whenever you think you can't do something because of some form of limitation, you need to become more self-aware. Again, we talked about the moon talking about being more self-aware. And you're going to catch yourself. And first, what you're going to do is just sort of stop yourself from saying it. You're not going to get the answers you're looking for by purely, sorry about that interruption. You're not going to get the answers you're looking for by immediately being like, yeah, I just don't have enough time. No, I have plenty of time. Because you're not in the right headspace to be able to connect to that. So instead, what you're going to do is you are going to say, I'm just going to put this on the table right now and come back to it another time. And then another point in your day, you're going to come back and you're going to be like, you know what? There's no reason why I can't see one day beautifully running into the next. You know, you can get a lot done in an hour and a lot done in 3 days. I think I actually have all the time in the world. My spirit guide made a really good suggestion. They highly recommended that you ask the universe and like your spirit guides or whomever you're comfortable asking for, and ask them for signs and sort of like helping perspectives that can help you connect better to the idea of this abundance. So this is like asking for this, and then suddenly your friend says something inspiring that helps you connect to this idea of you've got plenty of time. Or you're trying to figure out how to make more money, and then you hear some inspiring story from some actor that at one point in time was struggling and now they're making tons of money, and you realize that at any point in time you could have everything you need. And you're going to always approach things from pausing, taking a break from the thought, coming back to it later, approaching it from a better mindset, and simultaneously asking for these signs and helping hands and paying attention to them when they pop up in order to emotionally connect to them better, to slowly infuse them in your mantras and ideas over time. So over time, you can connect to the idea that you have enough. You can rewrite the way you see yourself. And this is a big one that I find is really helpful with lacking. You don't need to worry about instant proof or if it's in front of you. Instead, judge how much you have by how much you could have. The reality is, at any moment and given time, any possibility can happen in life for better. And there's no reason, you are no exception, that you can't have it. So because that's the case, you can just sort of take a load off, if you will, and start to say, well, I think that I would like to have this in my life, and I'm open to that possibility happening to me. And that alone is something to work with. So again, you're dealing with these, which over time solves the whole blockage feeling and dissipates it. That's how my spirit guide put it. What ends up happening is they said that unfortunately you can't, this is just going to happen. The stupid lies and person of influence. Keep in mind though, sometimes it's good when these things happen because they motivate us to like be in a different situation, to get a new job, make new friends. It's not a good environment as is. It's sort of like a blessing in disguise. But when it happens, you will not feel any desire, let alone to be so expressive and put it all out on the table. You won't even feel like you want to fight. You'll be like, well, it's not true what you're saying, and I don't really care, and I'm going to move on with my day. And there's a deep sense of peace, relaxation. Essentially, everyone very instantly and quickly gets bored, and all of this quote-unquote gossip and lies quickly gets swept under the table, forgotten about. It's not even a thing. It's as if it never happened. But the best way you can come from this headspace is by resolving this blockage over here. You've resolved the blockage, so there's no more need for the behind-the-scenes situation happening anymore because you've resolved what's happened behind the scenes. So I love this for you. Let's resolve this stupid, petty, interactions with other people by just bettering ourselves and having more in our life. So it's like a win-win. You unblock yourself, you realize your full potential, you attract more into your life, you feel better, and all the while you got to avoid something that was just a message nonetheless, but you don't have to go through the discomfort of that message. You're receiving that message now. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know. I will see you in the next one. Please give this video a like, a subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I'm wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing the next one. And let's get ready for group number 3. Group number 3. Let's find out, what future mistake can you rewrite now by looking at the cards? We first have the Queen of Swords tarot card upright. Page of Pentacles in reverse, 2 of Pentacles upright, 7 of Pentacles in reverse, and Page of Swords in reverse. This one's giving me like vibes in the sense of energetically palpable in a positive way. Like I feel a lot of power coming off of this one, this reading. So just give me a moment to look at the details of this powerful reading. I'm very curious what it is. And consult my spirit guides, and I'll be with you in one moment. Wow, this one's a really, really fascinating reading. This one's actually a great way to discuss how sometimes contradictions can exist in life. Because when we are seeking solutions to whatever we're going through, it can be kind of complicated to comprehend because of these contradictions. But something really fascinating going on here is, first we have the issue going on in the 2 of Pentacles upright. Now I'm going to be specific in one moment. But on one hand, over here in these 2 cards, we talk about how this is like weirdly a positive thing. So it talks about how you get there and letting you know how to get there, which is great, and you want to get here. But there are issues in this positivity, and it talks about how those issues are manifesting and essentially what they build up to. And then ultimately, in the same card that is talking about this fantastic thing that you're going to experience and also a problem, is also simultaneously the solution to all of it. So see what I mean? Like it's a lot of, we want to go here, but here's how it can go wrong, and loop to loop. It's really fascinating. So in the 2 of Pentacles upright, we want to look at the orb in the background of the imagery of the picture. Think of this as an ocean. And trapped in this orb, it's swaying back and forth. And we know the ocean is an incredibly powerful thing, especially in such a concentrated section. Those waves suddenly become even more intense. And if you were to be trapped in that orb, you would be struggling to not be pulled under, if you will. But it also feels powerful yet difficult because it's in such a tight, quarters, that compared to the regular ginormous size of the ocean that has plenty of time to go back and forth with its waves, especially at the shoreline, this is going to be more, sporadic, faster, everything like that. Now, this is actually meant to represent your power. And I'm not saying this in an abstract, like everyone has power. We sort of say it as a way of being like, yeah, you got this, girl. This is, or we're a person. This is more of a, like, no, really, You manifest like crazy. You make unbelievable things happen. Like, people can feel your energy just pulsating from you. You can just take command of a room really easily. There's a lot of intensity behind it. I mean, I'm being very literal about this. Very intense power. But the issue we have going on, despite this really positive notion, is the Two of Pentacles itself, the imagery in front of it. So my spirit guides say that this is so much power that it feels overwhelming for you to experience. And this results in you trying to solve experiencing it or feeling it or navigating it by becoming overly micromanaging with it. Trying to almost overly simplify, or not even oversimplify, make things too, like, in your pursuit to simplify something so you can comprehend it better, you actually make it more complicated. And you start to want to navigate it and control it in these little groups and ways of handling it in order to make it all easier. But in fact, you kind of have to be like the ocean in that orb and go with the flow. But like I said, it's in a concentrated section. You're going to feel like, you're going under. Now, I can be more specific about all of this, but let's kind of navigate this reading more, and then we'll go into those specifics. So how do you get to be so powerful from where you're at now? We have the Page of Pentacles. Now, the Page of Pentacles, interestingly enough, is not being read in reverse, but is read for more its imagery. So my spirit guide said this is representing you making a very teeny tiny kind of investment that ends up kind of being this fantastic foundation. We want to even think of this pentacle as like a seed that you're planting that sprouts into so much more. And I asked because sometimes I've heard my spirit guides use a similar turn of phrase when we look at the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. And I said, well, why aren't we using the Ace of Pentacles? And they said, the Ace of Pentacles is something like new, like a new opportunity type of concept. This is more like you have been exploring different facets of yourself, your consciousness, the way you look and understand the world. You're more experienced. However, through your, like the Page, studies type of situation, you have this sort of epiphany where, when I say small investment, we're talking about like, maybe you make a decision, you're going to make a decision, you're going to be more consistent. A decision, you're going to really put yourself first. Maybe it's a way you see something, but again, it's this small, like, declarative, like, idea that you're going to build upon and build off of. Again, just really tiny, decision, an idea, but it captures your attention and you realize it's a bit of like the secret to everything else. Now with that, you also simultaneously express the Queen of Swords, which means you living in a very intense, and I cannot stress this enough, very intense state of truth, which means you are being very honest with yourself. Were you as consistent as you could be? Do you feel like you're being your most authentic self 24 hours a day? Or do you feel like you kind of put on a show for other people, or say, oh, well, I don't really feel like I have the energy to be myself now, I'll do that later. This is also somebody who's extremely honest with other people as well. Now, I want to be clear. This is not popping up. I don't see a concern of you judging yourself, but I am just going to put my 2 cents in here because I do find this very helpful. But the Queen of Swords does not judge anyone nor herself for seeing when someone's not living in the truth and should be, or finds the truth. She's just matter of fact. So if she saw she wasn't living up to this investment she put down to herself, she wouldn't be like, oh, I'm such an awful person, I'm not good enough. She'd just think, oh, I should probably do that. And then she would put more of an effort towards this investment she made in herself, whatever that may be. But this is continuously being like, do you feel like you're feeling like your best? Do you feel like you're making decisions that make you happiest? Do you feel like you're in settings that build you up to be the best person you can be? And again, we're not being overly critical, overly hard on ourselves, nothing. Just you're continuously being honest with yourself and then making decisions from there. And not just with yourself, but with your peers as well. And again, this is not about going around judging or criticizing everyone, but definitely lovingly just being like, well, this is what I see matter-of-factly kind of thing. And not in relationship to the other people, but because by you expressing your truth of what you see the situation, you therefore in fact are within the truth. You get what I'm saying. So love that. These two things is what builds you up to being so in your power. However, because this power is so intense, it creates these like energy waves in you. And these energy waves result in a very uncomfortable feeling because you're sort of adjusting to all of this power. And this then manifests in sort of self-destructive tendencies. So it's like you are like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so uncomfortable. It's making me anxious, or it's a lot of like, my spirit guide said, a lot of like overwhelmed feelings, overwhelmed perspectives, overwhelmed anxieties, anything like that. And when it happens, you're like, again, back to the micromanaging, you're like, how can I give myself what I need so I don't feel like this? So one way that results is in the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. There's this really frustrating feeling where because you're kind of coming into all this power, but again, you're not just letting yourself be in it, you're trying to micromanage, like we talked in the Two of Pentacles, it starts to make you have this outburst of being like, well, where are the results? Where I'm trying to manifest, I really want this thing, where is it? I'm not seeing it. And again, this is what we talked about in the very beginning of the reading. It's interesting how contradictions can exist, because it's like, how are you struggling to manifest if simultaneously you have all this power? Well, it's because you start to take on this headspace, this mindset where you're like, where is it? I'm just looking for the results, but you're not even on a conscious level, that's what you're asking, but on a subconscious level, you're saying, I'm deeply uncomfortable with these energy waves I'm going through. This is where I can put my attention and kind of look for something that I think I can disagree with, because internally I'm disagreeing with how uncomfortable this is. And that doesn't put you in a good headspace. That overly impatient judgment of what you think you are doing or not doing also creates the Page of Swords in reverse. In the Page of Swords in reverse, this is when you become overly critical of yourself. And it's really interesting because the Page of Swords compared to something like the, I'm trying to think of a card off the top of my head, like the Knight of Cups in reverse, or like the Empress in reverse or something like that. This isn't just purely like disliking yourself because you find something wrong with it. It's like you're so in your head, again back to what we talked about over here, that you're kind of coming from it from a logical standpoint. I'm trying to find the right words for us. The best way I can put it is, if you have like an Empress in reverse card, you genuinely dislike some part of yourself, and that's going to take some time to heal, look into, whatever. You're sort of just nitpicking in the moment, which means you do actually have more control to not make this happen and change it. It's just something like you're getting in your head and it's getting expressed in this kind of way. And you're definitely expressing it verbally. That's like the biggest thing I see popping up over compared to, again, back to the Empress in reverse, which would be like a deep internal feeling of, unfortunately, self-hatred or disliking yourself for some reason, which you are beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you. And that includes every part of yourself. You're doing enough. You're doing fine. But this is what we talk about, the future mistake. So you're doing these things, and this is very helpful for you so you can step into this power. But when you, and this is when the solution comes, when you feel these waves coming up to the surface and it starts to make you have an emotional reaction to everything, there is the mistake or danger of going into these decisions. They're not going to actually help you be more in your power or give you the comfort you need. In fact, they will put you in an uncomfortable limbo where you're simultaneously so powerful, but you're deeply uncomfortable with it. Instead, this is really great practical advice my spirit guide said. They said, when you feel these bouts of waves of energy coming through, what you're going to do is you're going to stop everything and you're sort of just going to kind of sit in it, if you will. Be uncomfortable. You're going to meditate. That's going to be the big thing you're going to do. And during the meditation, you're not trying to resist the feeling of the energy waves, nor be like, okay, stop thinking, calm your mind. But you're also not trying to allow your mind to erase all these different places. You're just going to think about how you feel, which is the energy waves. You're just going to let these emotions run through you. And they said it wouldn't last a long time. And I said, when you say short time, are we talking days, weeks? And they said, oh, just a few minutes. So for a few minutes, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're just going to sit and meditate, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. So you're going to sit in your car, you're going to sit at work, you're going to sit at home. You're just going to sit for a second in the middle of the day when these emotions happen. You're going to let them sort of run their course, if you will. Just kind of let them happen for like 10 minutes. Then when you feel like they've settled down because they've ran their course, you're instead going to then utilize it. My spirit guide said you're going to want to manifest any slight whim you have where you want to go do something fun or contact somebody or you want to go explore a part of yourself. You're going to go follow those whims immediately. Basically, you're coming from a place of empowerment where you can direct that power. But what we're doing is we're trying to prevent you from getting lost in it, essentially. So I love this for you because you're about to, from what we talked about over here, step into, and I'm not kidding you, I feel it very intensely, intense power, but now you get to use it. So not only did we rewrite a future mistake, which would have led to a lot of frustration, discomfort, a lot of being in your head, micromanaging, uncomfortableness, making things complicated that don't need to be, and we simplified the process, and now you know how to utilize it. So what a fantastic read. I don't know about you, but I loved this reading. I loved that it, as I love so much in tarot, and what I always look for in these readings is you got so much more than was initially asked, and I think that's just so fantastic. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear what do you think? What's the first thing you're going to manifest when you feel it? Remember, you can manifest big and small things. I actually really love to manifest, fun fact, something I've been manifesting lately that I love is like, so let's say I go to get like a cup of coffee. I will ask for the experience itself of getting the cup of coffee to be like amazing. And I'll just have these great conversations with the people that work there. And I'll even ask for like the best cup of coffee I've ever had. And it is. And it's just a really good time. So I do highly recommend that. Anyways, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I am wishing you the best. And I look forward for you to enjoy your power. And let's get ready for our final group. Group number 4. Group number 4. Let's find out what future mistake can you rewrite now by looking at the cards. For your tarot cards, we have 4 of Cups in reverse, the Justice card in reverse, the Wheel of Fortune card in reverse, the 2 of Cups in reverse, and we have the 7 of Cups in reverse. Okay, give me just one moment to look over the details of everything and consult my spirit guides, and I'll be with you in one moment. Okay, let's get into this. So first we have the 4 of Cups in reverse, which might sound a little bit scary at first, but stick with me, don't worry. We're going to talk about how you get there as well as what to do to resolve it. So my spirit guides were talking about first it being in reverse is talking about this idea, this confirmation that like, do not worry, you're going to overcome it, it's all going to be good. But the mistake is the action itself, like getting there, so to speak. It represents this idea where you start to get bored of everything and you're like, no, that's not it. No, that doesn't, excite me or thrill me. But it becomes an issue because you start to kind of, instead of just being picky or having trouble finding what makes you passionate, over time you become dismayed and sort of cast everything aside. And this is where the part gets a little more from just being simply, nothing's getting you excited in life to becomes a pretty negative thing. My spirit guide said that there is the potential to start to cultivate this energy where opportunities dry up around you, things coming your way. This is like on a larger scale, financially, socially. It starts to build in such a way where it goes from you just feeling stagnant about things you're interacting with, which you can't really help to a certain degree because sometimes nothing gets us, excited about life, to it becomes to such an extreme that you just totally slow yourself down to the point where instead of feeling simply in a rut in your life, you're like, okay, I'd really love to have some things positively come my way. I really need it. You know what I mean? On a more intense level. So obviously we don't want this to happen to you because not only is it not fun, but what it would build up to isn't great either. So the way you initially get there is in the Justice card in reverse. And this is why it's always important, if you work with your spirit guides, I do, to ask deeper questions. That way you not only understand tarot better, but you can understand the inflection of the meaning. So my spirit guide said that you get there by having sort of a black and white perspective. And I said, well, normally I've heard that used with the Chariot card. Why are we not using the Chariot card to represent this idea rather than just the Justice card? And they said the Chariot card is this idea of momentum behind it, moving forward or getting stuck because of it. And then the Justice card is more of a moral perspective on it. It's this energy where it feels like initially the way you're observing the world is very, that's fair, that's not unfair. And it kind of becomes your most predominant thoughts. And the reality is, well, things in life completely can be unfair, and I think we can agree to that in some of the ways, not to get too, I'm trying to make this as lighthearted as can be. We'll just say it's agreed. That does happen. That's not where it needs to end in perspective. You can change the situation. You can be a part of the solution. You can contemplate where you would like it to go. You can, whenever you're interacting, you can make it as positive as it can be. There are other aspects of life than just things that feel frustrating. There are, enjoyable trips and experiences, and all of it can add up together for something more. And so, on one hand, we have just kind of pulling away from only getting in that headspace. So that's one perspective. But another perspective is, well, what were the decisions behind X, Y, and Z? And understanding that. And not just stopping at that mindset of fair, not fair, right, not right, but going, I see there are issues in this area that led to this. I see that there is an influence over here. Now I'm understanding it better. I see that the thing that I would like, there are connections over here that can benefit it, and so on and so forth, or understanding where people are coming from in general, and so on and so forth. So again, you don't want to get trapped in just the one mindset of viewing things in this one way, that there's a greater way to view not only those situations in order to find more helpful solutions for not only your consciousness, but happiness and as well as the world interactions with others. But also the reality is that, some people live entire lives never thinking that way. And again, I'm not promoting not to think about those things. I'm saying just the idea that you don't have to trap yourself into one perspective ever. You can view many parts of your life and many aspects of the world around you and diversify it and feel in a better state of mind, and a better state of mind that if you would like to be proactive, you can make something happen. You know what I mean? Also, it is just something to contemplate. Again, not trying to call you out or anything like that. I'm coming from the most loving, I'm just saying this. But sometimes when people get in that headspace, it's their subconscious feeling that way about certain aspects of their life. And so while there is a truth, again, of the being unfair and not fair, or being fair and not fair type of concept, sometimes when there's only the energy there, and then it's like, okay, well, you can do something to fix it or change it, and then the lack of being action and making something happen is really sometimes people on some level wanting to stay in that mindset because they're trying to work out how they feel internally about other aspects of their own personal life. And it's sort of they're sort of like attaching themselves to a certain headspace because they're trying to find their way to the answer, which is understandable. So this perspective becomes too predominant, starts to feel like a detachment from other things, which then becomes a detachment from everything else, which then starts to manifest in overall, it's like, think of it this way. If you don't feel that nothing is worth it and there's not a lot in the world and what's the point, it starts to manifest in larger ways in your own personal situation and bubble. You get what I'm saying here? Now, we can actually change this for the better. So this is interesting because we are always trying to find ourselves the answer. On one perspective, when you are in this headspace, you're trying to find the answer. You're leading yourself in the direction. You're trying to go, is this where I'm meant to go? And you're subconsciously trying to take yourself there. But on another, this sense of feeling stuck or stalled in some kind of way is, hold on one second. So sorry about that interruption. When you're feeling stuck and stalled, it's a subconscious part of you that says, we are trying to prevent ourselves from moving forward because something else needs to be focused on right now and healed in order for us to have the best time and best solutions and everything like that in order to move forward, essentially. So in the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, this is talking about this idea of you releasing karma. There's a lot that's been needing to be released for a while. This can be my spirit guide is interrupting me. Only past lives. Fantastic. Okay, so only past lives are popping up. And there's sort of an influencing factor in your life that we need to get out of there so you are yourself independently without these karmic ties. Now, it's interesting. There are many ways to release karma. I've talked about this countlessly on this channel, so I won't bore you with that. But I will say that something of note is my spirit guide said, go see them, as in go see the spirit guide so they can help you work on releasing the karma. And then they only left it at that. And I was talking to my spirit guide, and I said, oh, well, is there something else? Usually you give me a whole long list of things to say. And they said, they can do it other ways, but we really want them to come see us, which I think is interesting. I also think it's interesting because when you are able to go see the spirit guides, as I've talked about, I give a whole tutorial of how to do that and deeper explanations and everything in my intuition training course down below, if you're interested. But when you are able to travel to the spirit realm and have this hands-on effect with releasing the karma, because you are an interactive experience, it helps you get the deeper kind of comfort and release that you're looking for because you're hands-on about it. But also, when we feel this way about the world, we feel powerless. So it's understandable. We're like, this is fair, this is not fair. But by coming from this place, you are taking a hold of your power and realizing you have more of it than you know and that you can do more than you realize. And the spirit guides want all of us to have this. And by meeting and talking with them and interacting with them, they're like, let me help you get there. You want to make this change? Let me help you make this change. And I think that's fantastic for you because it's like a win-win of you getting the release of this past that's been holding you down on a subconscious level and influencing you, but you're also stepping into something that's giving you a greater solution that you initially were starting off in. In addition to that, my spirit guides also said that you need to focus on the Two of Cups in reverse, which is instead of thinking that when you go to put in energy or time or socialization, whatever, into other people or situations, not having the expectation that you will get it back equally. Now, on one hand, yes, we don't want you to be taken advantage of, and on another, it's super frustrating when you feel like you're putting your heart out there and you're not getting it in return. We're not talking about forever kind of overly giving yourself away. Not at all. It's just that you're trying to stop being in this headspace where you go and do a nice deed and you think, why didn't they do this nice deed for me? Or you go, you put a lot of time and energy in towards something and you're like, I was hoping that after I did all these things for it, the company would give this back in return for me. You're getting in this headspace where you're thinking of everything you're interacting with can build upon and grow because of your inner power that we just spoke about. That your energy is valuable, whatever you have to offer is valuable, socially, your time, your effort, your knowledge. And when you interact with other people, your career, relationships, and you're thinking, I'm a gardener, and everywhere I put these seeds and till the soil and like put all this effort, I'm essentially building and growing everything everywhere. And because you're not expecting, okay, well, where is it? Where is that in return? I put this much in, I should get this much back. And you're not in that headspace. You're only seeing, look at all that I'm doing. Look at all that it could become. I'm only seeing the potential. Totally opposite headspace from someone who's not seeing the potential of something. Because how many times have we done something and initially it's boring and it ends up being really fun? So in the beginning we couldn't see the potential. You're only exercising potential. This is what's really cool. Again, we talked about we don't want to give ourselves away. We're not promoting that or saying that that's where you're headed. Instead, what happens is we've got the 7 of Cups over here in reverse, which is not only a solution to preventing you from getting in this headspace, but listen to how cool this is. It's a win-win. This talks about how you will end up attracting to yourself a lot of opportunities in various parts of your life because of this headspace, because you're no longer expecting it from others and only focusing on who you are as an individual and all the power you have to exude out of yourself through this form of expression in everything you do. But here's where it's both talking about this positive prophecy of you getting all this opportunity, but it says that you need to be very decisive. When you get all these opportunities, you can't start hoarding it or dabbling. You want to be very clear that, okay, here are all these options. That's the decision I'm making. Because you're going to keep getting waves of options and you're going to be more and more tailoring of your experience. Again, very opposite to here. The 4 of Cups has some options. He keeps thinking, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, and nothing feels good enough, so eventually he puts away all his options. When you're really decisive with all of your options, you're saying to yourself, so I want more of this, I want more of this. Again, you're only in the headspace of abundance. You're only in the headspace of more and more and more. So I love this for you because it starts off from somebody who's clearly passionate and cares, and that's a beautiful thing, but it's understandably frustrated. Who wouldn't be? And instead of going down a direction where they could end up building a lot more negativity in their life that would be harder to get out of, they instead end up feeling better, healing, making a change in themselves, making a change into their environment, viewing things in a new way, attracting only abundance, feeling in a sense of control and excitement and passion about their life. A total 180 from here and here. And I love that for you. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd really love to know. This was a very exciting, empowering reading I loved getting into. And please also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. I'm wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you next one. And goodbye.